Ladies and gentlemen, holy Toledo, what a whirlwind today in the market. We see the broader indexes open up with a large sell-off due to macroeconomic GDP data that shows a slowing down in the economy. We'll be talking about this, followed at the final few hours of the trading session by an immense rally finishing in the green. That was not what I was expecting. We see the Magnificent Seven, the first round of some of the big stocks, reporting great earnings from Microsoft and Meta. And we also have Palantir that is near all-time highs right now in the overnight hours on Robinhood with their earnings coming out Monday after the bell. We got a lot of important information to talk about, especially as Trump had blamed this sell-off and the GDP data on Biden, saying that this is not Trump's market. So we're going to be analyzing, talking about all the craziness that's happening in this world on Wall Street. Hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and let's get into the video. Now, Palantir closes at market close at 118.44. We see basically the same trading pattern after Palantir broke this $100 level of resistance the last time it did. We saw this immense run up back up here to 125. Palantir could easily cross that tomorrow with the current momentum that we are seeing, entering this price discovery mode, and the fact that you also have 2 more trading days, basically 3, until we're going to see the earnings call. And where Palantir currently sits at right now is at about 121.15, up about another $2. So Palantir is doing very well right now in terms of some of the articles that are coming out. And, we could talk about technical analysis here, but it's in a price discovery mode. I think if we continue to see momentum in the market, especially with the other earnings reports that are going to be coming out tomorrow, and if we have any craziness coming from the administration, if buying pressure continues, Palantir could easily pass their all-time highs. Looking here, you have this article from The Street talking about this veteran fund manager rebooting Palantir stock price target, and going into the details on how Donald Trump talking about to pursue this golden dome, kind of similar to Israel's Iron Dome, and the amount of capital that this would take to produce. Talking about Pentagon spending more than $150 billion. Nonetheless, this article is really just going into the amount of government spending on defense that this administration is currently looking into. Remember, we had kind of anticipated cuts from the Department of Government Efficiency, but we haven't been seeing a lot of that in the headlines. So going to where we are now, if we truly want, this golden dome that the administration wants in this defense sector to really improve, that brings a lot of capital to the game. And Palantir is sitting at the forefront for bringing AI solutions in terms of that defense sector. So Palantir is kind of at the top in terms of competition for bringing these AI solutions. And these different types of contracts could really be a boom for Palantir. So I think they are a big outlier in this whole kind of Department of Governmental Efficiency uncertainty that's been lying around in the federal government. Palantir does help where workload is being cut, bringing efficiency, reducing costs to those areas. That's why you're seeing kind of lifting on price targets across the board. Government contracts currently accounting for about 55% of Palantir's revenue, and we've been continuing to see a lot of governmental contracts continuing to be secured. Just looking at Palantir winning the NATO contract, and these different defense companies that are getting in and want to get a piece of AI, Palantir knows how to bring utility to that. And especially what we've seen with big names like from the Magnificent Seven here, Google intended to simplify the process for these federal agencies for streamlining compliance, accelerating innovation, Long story short, is that these price targets here lifting to 125, it's basically where all-time highs are. Palantir is doing a great job, and the fact that it's up over 55% year to date heading into earnings next week is incredibly bullish, considering the market that we've seen. The broader market's down year to date. So with them being a hedge against the market, basically, working on all these defense contracts and continuing to excel, that is very, very good in terms of resiliency. Looking at the market right here, with the opening of the market, we see a large sell-off after the GDP data was released. We'll talk about this in a second. But Trump basically puts those market struggles on Biden as the economy, they're saying, sinks under his watch. But we've seen a lot of just I don't know if I'd say completely sinks where the economy's at right now. It's not completely even in a bearish, yes, it's a bearish perspective, but year to date, we've been seeing a lot of bounce back and a lot of resiliency, especially from the retail investors. We've seen more sell-off from the institutional side of things. But the first 100 days in office right here, basically saying that with this overhang from the previous administration, that he did not come in to and take over until January 20th, saying that tariffs are going to start soon kicking in and companies are going to start to move into the USA in record numbers. So, of course, promising very good results. That's typically the narrative that we do get from the Trump administration. Being, nonpartisan here and not taking a political affiliation, it is funny to see just some of the statements that are being made and sometimes just proof in the pudding. We'll see what happens with the tariffs, especially with the negotiations, what's going to be happening. That the market is waiting for actual deals to be secured. That is the big thing. We see a lot of talks about negotiations. I think the market is getting sick of hearing about these talks and negotiations. They want to see real deals being made. When we saw this yesterday with more hopes towards the deal being made with India, that's where we saw a little bit of buying pressure coming in. So as soon as that continues, if we see those being secured, that will be bullish for the market. In terms of what happened with the sell-off this morning, that we had GDP data that was released this morning showing that the U.S. economy shrank for the first time in 3 years in the first quarter, highlighting concerns about the possibility of a recession. I think this whole possibility of a recession, it's been sitting here since the beginning of the year. So yes, we have more concrete data now that we're seeing the actual slowing of the economy weaker than anticipated from these private payroll numbers. The Fed's preferred measure of inflation, the PCE data, was also released this morning, and that was actually in line with economists' expectations. So they're watching these economic indicators, as this article talking about, looking to assess the impact of the policies, trying to see these geopolitical tensions, how that's going to possibly affect the Fed's decisions on interest rates. This could be a signaling for more cuts, which the market wants rate cuts, and the administration wants rate cuts. Now that we have more macroeconomic pieces of data, like the GDP here is showing that the economy shrank for the first time in 3 years, this could help the Fed decide to possibly cut rates. Their biggest fear, though, that they've been really holding on to is what are going to be the effects on the tariffs in terms of inflation. But that is just something we don't know yet because those negotiations are still all over across the board. But this does increase the probability with the GDP shrinking. Looking at the big earnings that were released today, that is, we have Microsoft and Meta coming with very good earnings. Apple and Amazon are reporting tomorrow. So the first round, Microsoft shares, they jump over 9% on earnings and revenue beats, uplifting their forecast. Microsoft came here with $3.46 per share versus $3.22 expected. That correlates with a revenue of $70 billion versus $68.42 billion. Now, management reiterated the capital expenditures that they're going to be growing in the fiscal year. Also, what we saw is that they're going to plan to spend $80 billion in the fiscal year 2025 on construction of data centers that can handle artificial intelligence workload. Ladies and gentlemen, the AI demand is still there. It is strong. You see hefty imports from overseas, depending where tariffs land. Microsoft doesn't know what's happening there, but continuing to invest nonetheless heavily in AI infrastructure during the quarter. That's continuing, and we're seeing even Azure's, the cloud platform, revenue growing 33%, with 16 points of the growth associated with AI analysts. So very well incorporated into the AI things. This AI infrastructure is continuing to be expanding with a lot of capital being invested into those data centers. Heading over to Meta, shares rise on stronger than expected revenue in the first quarter, rising as much as 5% after they reported stronger than expected earnings, coming at $6.43 earnings per share versus the $5.28 expected, with a revenue of $42.3 million versus $41.4 billion. Also, in terms of here, what we're seeing with the total expenses, the capital expenditures coming in the range here. Looking also at data center investments supporting our artificial intelligence. So as a summary, going into these earnings, you guys can get into the earnings calls if you want to get into all the nitty gritty. But quick summary, AI is here to stay. We're seeing the big companies, Microsoft, Meta, starting off with good reports in terms of the actual consumer confidence that we're seeing in the market. Like I said, we saw the economy coming down, but these big stocks doing very, very well. One thing I do want to talk about, we see a little report here in the after hours with Tesla coming down to about 277 right now as we speak, a pullback where this 284 at 8 p.m. we see a sell-off to 274. We basically see a report. I don't know how concrete this is. We'll be looking more into it tomorrow. Just something that popped up on my radar and my feed. Tesla shares on a report that the company's board opened search for CEO to replace Elon Musk. Now, I'm taking that with a big grain of salt. How true is that actually? Where is that coming from? But you already have these whole articles being posted on it. I do know a lot of people do come at Elon Musk, so we'll see if any of this is kind of true. So please take that with a grain of salt. Otherwise, what do you guys think about Palantir, the big stocks, the Trump administration, the response to the market selling off, but we see it closing in the green? What do you guys all think about that? Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Could be another crazy roller coaster. Peace out. Take care.